What you got going on over there, Jim Davis?
I'm just retooling every monster in the monster manual so they don't suck so much.
It's about time somebody did that. How did we get here? Where have we been?
I think this is our editor's garage.
Oh, right.
Yeah, that's like the second time he's moved this year.
Yeah, a lot of hiccups. That's fine.
hiccups.
So, Razel-Sinn.
Yeah.
Screw you.
Listen,
For
man.
the Marvel villain slip away, by the way.
Listen, she can plane shift, she can go ethereal. You guys should have known that. She's a night hag. You guys are 8th level characters.
It's true.
All right.
It's true. We did start at 8th level. Where did you exactly get the inspiration for the world that we played in?
So, I mean, the world itself is one that I've worked on many, many times.
Mm-hmm.
We've actually played in this campaign world on 4 separate occasions.
Oh, yeah?
First 4th edition game, we played in this campaign world. The guy with the
Okay.
Lich King who comes back, Dead Emperor,
Yeah.
raising an army of undead to fight against you guys.
Yeah, Elvedine. Okay.
Yeah. We played the one where you guys were present at the creation of the world and played like mythic concepts and invented. That's this world.
That's where I played my Dr. Manhattan character.
Yeah, Dr. Manhattan. That
was awesome.
We also played in it whenever, like the second 4th edition game, we kind of half played where it was like the elves had taken over a Hobgoblin Peninsula and were sort of like colonial power sort of things. You guys had an airship for a while. The game didn't last that long.
No, it didn't.
So I've used the world for a while. It's sort of a mismatch of basically every fantasy trope and setting that I've ever really cared about that are sort of like molded and melded into one setting that I've used. But the inspiration for the adventure is actually straight from the monster manual.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. The flavor text of the hag has a lot of really cool stuff about sort of how they manipulate people and sort of set up these vast, elaborate plots, and also how they create more of themselves. And it just screamed like, this is an adventure waiting to happen, uncovering how a hag goes about recreating more of herself and the terror that would cause the people that just got in her way.
What else, other than the flavor text, because that's a great resource for DMs to use.
Yeah.
What else, like, inspired the world? Like games, any kind of movies, anything like that?
So I had just gotten off the back of doing a playthrough of Witcher 3. I'm a big fan of the Witcher series. I think they really integrate monster mythology with a believable fantasy society into one kind of cohesive whole. They do a really good job. They're very atmospheric, very sort of tension-filled. And when you're playing the video game, you kind of go to these little villages, and they're all terrified of the monsters that live in the woods and prey on them. And so it's kind of wanting to bring some of that just kind of rustic rural horror to a game where outsiders kind of have to come in and piece together what in the world's going on. Are these people living in terror and fear their entire lives because of monsters out there in the woods preying on them? And just, is there a way to translate the mythology of a game like The Witcher into tabletop D&D and also kind of make it my own, but also impart the same kind of elements from it?
For any DMs out there, how would you say, because we started at 8th level.
Right.
And by the end of the whole thing, I think what we've got to 9th, basically.
Yeah.
But how would you scale, like, say we wanted to start at 1st or 2nd level, or say we wanted to start at 13th or 14th level? How would you scale that up with regards to what's in the world?
So, I mean, if you're going to scale down, a night hag or similar monster is a really great monster to have as kind of a main villain for most of the first half of a campaign. You can imagine that she's not going to get her hands directly dirty. You're going to be fighting her allies, her henchmen, the creatures that she's charmed or somehow manipulated to fight you. Maybe there's a cult that's dedicated to her that I would have thrown in there that you guys have to deal with. People that she's cast charm person on every day for 13 years who've just become habituated to following her orders, and you have to deal with them. Do you kill those people? Are they innocent or not? Dealing with those kind of questions from an earlier level can be interesting. Maybe I start you out at the beginning of that year, and you're already in the region whenever the first of the girls kind of goes berserk and becomes a hag. And then you're having to kind of deal with the ramifications of that. And then realizing, like, this is beyond your ability to tackle at that moment. So how do you nibble away at her base of power as a 3rd level character or something before you finally feel confident enough to tackle her? If it's a higher level campaign, that might just be a single adventure. depending on what kind of divination magic you have access to, or magic items that are available, it might just be like, commune, what's going on in the region? I'm going to contact other plane. What's the biggest threat in this part of the world? And, part of it's mitigated by the fact that I had the island she's on be sort of provide a non-detection type effect whenever she's there. She's not always on that island.
Yeah.
And she's running around all over the place and plane hopping and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, but a high-level party who catches her out in the world
Yeah.
probably make short work of her.
And then she becomes the minion of a greater evil. Maybe
Right.
she's the henchman, because she can plane shift, she has access that something like demons or devils, access to the material plane that they don't have. So maybe she's sort of an agent for an archdevil who's trying to establish a foothold in that part of the world. And that's sort of where you go with that kind of setup.
Now you have this little, I guess you would call it, you called it a sandbox.
It's like a miniature sandbox.
Little miniature sandbox. How would a DM, like if they were interested in this, fit that into their campaign world?
So if you're going to do something where you're creating basically a scenario that this is the problem that needs to be solved, here are all the people that you could potentially interact with. There's a priest, there's a governor, there's a commander of the local garrison, and so you kind of pick out like maybe a dozen or so NPCs. You don't need a lot of write-up on them, maybe a sentence or two. Certainly don't have to stat them out or anything. There's no need for that at this point of the game. You just kind of look at the region that you think the players are going to stay in and just go, what all is there for them to interact with? And then you just have enough in your mind to kind of wing it as they go, and familiar enough with the tools in the monster manual or the DMG that if you need to, you can say, I need a 5-minute break. I'm gonna get some concrete information on this. So for instance, if you guys hadn't decided to visit John's kennel and then make your way to the elves, stopping by the goblins, and it had instead gone the other direction, and maybe you guys wanted to talk to the garrison commander,
Right.
then it would just be a matter of like, all right, give me a second while I figure out what's going on over there, but I've got notes, everything. That's the kind of how you run a miniature sandbox like that. So there's definite boundaries. You tell the players, like, the campaign is set in this part of the world. Please don't go off the edge of the map yet.
Right.
If you'd like to, let me know ahead of time, please. But as long as you're staying in this little area, anything and everything is up for grabs.
Because, you told us the kind of world it was going to be in. I made a storm sorcerer because it made sense. There's a lot of water there, there's a lot of sailing. So I kind of tailored my character to the campaign world.
Yeah.
So does it behoove a character or a player to do that or make your own thing?
I mean, as a DM, I always like it when the players attempt to integrate their characters into a campaign, regardless of what that is. And even if they don't do it from the very beginning, but they attempt to do it as play goes on. I'm a big, big, big fan of everything that happens at the gaming table once the campaign starts is way more important than what happened before. So backstory, interesting, not as important as what's going on at the table.
Right.
Integrating a character doesn't have to be something that they do like while they're making it. It can be something that they do while they play the character. That said, if they just kind of show up and they're like, here's my fighter, this is the one I'm playing, here's the wizard, this is the guy I'm playing, I think that's perfectly fine as long as what they do in play aligns with everybody else at the table as well as the campaign that's presented, of course with their own input and their own influence over the direction of the campaign. Or you can go the other route and say, hey DM, I want to know everything about the backstory. I want to know as much as you're comfortable telling me about the villain. So if we're talking about a game like the new Curse of Strahd that's going to be coming out here next month, and you're like, I want to play a light cleric who is all about killing undead.
Yeah.
And that's really going to be tailored to fighting a vampire and its undead minions.
Might have to bring back Thoros of Myr for that.
Absolutely, right. I was kind of thinking of playing a Dwarven Battle Rager for that game. Ooh. But anyway, all that aside, either approach is fine. Whether you really get involved with the DM and you have a lot of good conversations about what kind of character would work best for this game, or you're flexible enough in the type of character you play that you can just show up with a character and are confident that through the course of play, you will become integrated into the game.
Did we disappoint at all as far as picking up on those threads as we were playing? As a DM, you just kind of have to leave the breadcrumbs and hopefully they follow the right trail, right?
I mean, I don't think there was no point in which I was disappointed. I don't, I don't usually when I purposefully sit down and I'm playing a sandbox style campaign, I really try to think of everything you guys might possibly want to do. This is the difference between running for the same group of people for years on end versus a pickup group at a game store or just random people through an online gaming forum. When you game with the same group of people, you really get to know what their personalities are like. Even if you don't hang out any other, other than the fact that we're all friends to begin with, you just kind of get to know what their play styles are. We're going to need this kind of interaction because that's what Audie and Josh like. Or Emma likes this kind of game, so we're going to have to throw something in there. So it becomes easy to sort of look at a scenario and go, Pruitt's going to do this. Emma's going to do this. Josh is going to want to do that. And even if you don't do the exact thing, it's within the close enough ballpark that, I'm always prepared for what you guys decide to do. Part of the fun of it is seeing how you solve a challenge that has no end point.
Right. Yeah. I have to say the whole shrunken animal thing threw me for a loop. Until it was revealed what it was.
Yeah.
It was a great gimmick. Never really thought about that. Just run around with just like a little bag full of just small little, whatever. I need an ogre.
Break its neck, throw the ogre out. That is the benefit of monsters and players having different rules.
Yeah.
So if we're playing that same kind of scenario in, say, 3rd edition, where monsters and characters are created using the exact same rules, the players can kind of use that to their advantage, and they can go, okay, polymorph works like this, which means that must have been like this, and so there's a kind of logic you can use to it. Whereas in 4th and 5th edition, where monsters and characters are similar, particularly in 5th edition, where they're similar enough but also very different, that it really frees the DM to go, player probably can't walk around with a bunch of squirrels that they've polymorphed, or a bunch of ogres that they've polymorphed into squirrels, except for like once an hour.
Right.
But a villain could. And
why
there's
not?
a plausible in-game rationale for it, that if you guys were really that curious, how did she do that? There's die rolls and people you can talk to, and I've thought about sort of the rationale for it. It's not just because I said so. I've tried to make it plausible. But at the same time...
It makes sense.
At the same time, it is they operate differently.
You can do that. I mean, by the rules, that's what you do.
She's a 1,000-year-old fiend that spent most of her times in the lower planes. No telling what kind of magic tricks she learned there.
Yeah. So, Jim.
Yeah.
And I believe it started in an off-camera conversation.
Yeah.
But we just started to discuss the possibility of, if we killed one of these kids, would that derail her plans, and is that necessarily evil?
Yeah. Okay.
And we kind of on screen or on the video, we had it in game.
Yeah.
But we had already kind of had that conversation.
Yeah, that was at the end of the first day of shooting.
Did you think that wow, my players are evil? Wow, they're going to derail the campaign by we're just going to kill these, before we find out we could have just done that from the beginning?
No, I was prepared for you guys to do that.
Okay.
I would see it as an evil act. At least, maybe not capital E evil, but certainly the optics of it would be, okay, these guys from out of town who are members of the imperial government and wizards are kicking down peasants' doors and we're going to take your 12-year-old girl and murder her for your own good. You would have had to deal with those consequences.
Yeah.
But I was prepared for you if you guys were like, this is the only way to deal with a hag.
Well, but after we found out that the kids were already dead, though, then it's it's like, hey, what are you going to do? But when we were having that conversation, we didn't have definitive evidence that these were not the actual children.
Yes.
So I get
so it creates moral ambiguity and sort of a conundrum for the players, because yes, the most effective method is let's round them up and kill them all.
And just start icing them.
Yeah, and if that's what you want to do, then as a DM, I'm prepared for you to go there. I would not have opened up, you open up the possibility for that when you say, yes, they are 12-year-olds. They are just children. They probably got D4 hit die or D4 hit points.
Yeah.
And for me, you start doing that, then the hag then you force the hag to react to you.
Yeah.
If she finds out you're rounding up all the rest 9 of them, then she's probably going to come after you.
Yeah.
So it's those kinds of decisions that players can make that the DM has to be prepared for and to think through the consequences of it. Most of the time when I'm preparing for a game, it's just me thinking, what if they do this?
Yeah.
What if they do that? What if they do this? I don't worry about stats. I don't worry about mechanics. I worry about what you guys are going to do and how I can react to your actions.
So how many renegade points would we have gotten had we started killing the kids per?
Well, given that they're technically no longer human, I mean, a moderate amount, maybe, you know, it would have certainly made the rumors that would have come out of that area would have been like, yeah, these people showed up and
bunch of assholes.
But at the same time, they also protected us. It would have been a short-term panic for a long-term game. But
Probably
it
would have had to fight some town guard.
Probably had to fight some town guard, sure. It would have been pretty ruthless, but also efficient. And that's the decision you have to make as a player.
Those are the tough calls, you know. That's why we love playing these games. God. So, that was our first time of playing in front of the camera.
Yes.
As a DM, how did you feel about the session itself and during the filming process? Because we filmed over 2 days.
Over 2 days, yeah.
It was probably like 8-10 hours each day.
Yeah.
Surrounded by cameras and lights.
Yeah.
How did you feel about it? Like, I mean, versus a normal session.
Versus a normal session. So, I don't. It's one of those things where it's hard for me to see how watching it could be interesting, and at the same time, I can also see how watching a group play through a game can be really instructive. If you're a new player. Excuse me.
Just let it out, man.
If you're a new player, you've never seen this done, or you want to know what like mid-level D&D looks like, here's kind of what it looks like. Here's how we play the game. It's a little uncomfortable because we run a much more casual game. People are coming and going. We're eating snacks. We're just kind of hanging and chilling out while we're also playing. So that's different. We're much more focused than we usually are, and much more on it, and also playing for much longer stretches of time than we're used to. So, I mean, in a way, it's exhausting in that respect. To just kind of have to sit in one little box and focus on the game for 8 hours is tiresome.
Yeah.
At the same time, it's also really fun because it's an intense role-playing experience where because you have to be on it and because you have to be, you can't be easily distracted and let everything kind of get in the way, you can get a lot more gaming in.
Yeah,
definitely. We got through a lot more than we would normally get through in a usual weekly session.
I will say on the player end, there was a lot more. There's a weird anxiety of trying to play and focus, but also like you can't move that far.
You can't move that far
because then you're out of frame.
Yeah,
and then the shot's ruined. It's just a whole other like weird set of things to worry about that kind of start to drag on you.
It is. It's sort of you're performing, and at the same time you're also just trying to have a good time. I mean, I had a really good time doing it, and I hope that we're able to finish up and see what happens as the extra dimensional hut plummets into the ocean.
Yeah. What do you think we're going to be able to get out of there? I mean, I know Theron is. I mean, I got flying boots, so just F everyone else. But
I mean, that's you can, you guys at that point will be 8th level characters. You've just had a big fight, so your resources are a little depleted.
Well, but I know exactly what he's going to do first. That's the thing, and that's I think we'll be fine.
I think you guys are going to be fine too. Once you get like past 5th level, if a character dies, it's the player's fault. If it's before, then it's probably the DM's fault.
Yeah, you might have thrown something a little bit too heavy at him.
A little bit too much. But once you can start, once you've got the resources to really take care of yourself, then it's like, you've got to be prepared for that kind of thing.
Yeah, once you can start dishing out the fireballs, the lightning bolts, and flying around and dispelling stuff.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, it's all on you at that point. Just make good choices.
Yeah, good choices.